CBS News contributor Frank Luntz spoke with a group of 12 conservative Alabama voters for Vice News. Some of them questioned the credibility of Roy Moore's accusers.
How many women have to come forward before you say, wait a minute, where there's smoke, there's fire?
It doesn't matter about legitimacy, not just how many. Exactly. How many are actually not being paid or being coerced to do this?
How many of them do you think are being paid?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. All of them.
By show of hands, how many of you think all the women are being paid? Seriously.
To me, there are only 2 women that maybe have a smoking gun, but, you know, the women's, their reputations were questionable at the time.
Is this how you want to be treated as a woman if something were to happen to you? Do you want to be dismissed that way?
Better have proof.
Joining me now on the set, we have CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett in the flesh and blood, and CBS News political director Steve Chaggaris.
They come together, the flesh and the blood.
Yes, well, it's so rare that you're here, you know, breathing. I know Steve comes by every once in a while, but
so rare that I'm breathing.
You know what?
Boxing me out here, actually.
You hardly visit anymore, and I'm not happy about that.
We'll amend that in the future, I promise.
Thank you. So let's talk. We're going to talk about the podcast.
Of course we are.
We're going to get to that. But
otherwise, they're at the takeout podcast.
Yes, exactly. But let's talk about this big election tomorrow. Yeah. The day has finally arrived. It's tomorrow in Alabama. These accusations, you heard that focus group there, women talking about the accusations and the accusers. From what I know, according to the latest polls, this is still a super, super tight race. These accusations against Roy Moore of sexual misconduct, are they having any impact at all?
Sure, they're having impact. And one of the reasons this race is close is because of these accusations. The race wouldn't be close without them. Roy Moore would be safely ahead and probably looking to a double-digit victory, absent these allegations. They have recentered the race along the questions of his conduct and what's believable and what's not. And what we saw in that focus group is, for those voters, conservatism and proven conservatism of the kind that Roy Moore has always had in Alabama is more important than allegations, because what they have is proof of his conservatism and allegations that he is amoral. Or predatory. And they are willing to bank on the proven conservatism over the alleged predatory conduct.
I like the way you frame that for people who are confused about that, because the conversation, you know, often is these are religious people, you know, are they compromising their ethics and their values for Roy Moore? But that's a different sort of framework that you presented to me. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, and you know, it's interesting to hear these words come out of these folks' mouths, but we had a hint of this when we had a poll out last week in which we asked likely voters in Alabama, likely Republican voters, 71% said they don't believe the allegations.
Do they think that these women were paid? I mean, are they buying
there
the
was
counter
another
argument?
sub-question to that. So among those who didn't believe the allegations, 93% said that they think that these women are either looking for attention or looking to be paid.
Wow.
That's pretty overwhelming.
So they go to the idea of motivation. What is the motivation? And their motivation is, I want a conservative representing my point of view in the Senate. And what's your motivation? You don't want a conservative representing me, so you're against my interests or my convictions. And so those convictions become more important than whatever the underlying facts are or aren't. But having said all of that, we don't know what's going to happen in Alabama.
Right, really?
We have no, I don't. I have no confidence in these polls. Not that their methodology is suspect, but we have no clue what the turnout is going to be.
Right. We don't know who's
the
going to
senior Republican senator from Alabama goes on television.
I want to bring that up, yes.
Yesterday, Richard Shelby. He didn't have to go on television and tell every Alabama voter, I didn't vote for Roy Moore and we can do better. But he did. What effect does that have on Republican-based voters, nominally attached Republicans, and people who are thinking maybe this Democratic opponent, Doug Jones, might be a better alternative?
Right. And Doug Jones seems to be really sort of beefing up his counteroffensive, if you will.
Trying.
Sure. But to the turnout question, this is a special election with nothing else on the ballot. So if anybody's going to go vote, they're going to vote for this election and this election only. How does that affect who turns out? That's the big question. I mean, there's some discussion about how Doug Jones might be able to get the base out. Well, we look at the base Democrats who voted in 2008 and 2012. Well, who was on the ballot in 2008 and 2012? Barack Obama, right? Bringing out excitement among Democratic voters. There's no other Democrats on the ballot to bring out that small number of Democrats in the state. And that's the other thing we've got to point out about conservatives in Alabama. This is a state that votes repeatedly for Republicans. So in the presidential election, they haven't voted for a Democrat since 1976. They haven't voted for 60% of the vote has gone to the Republican presidential candidate in every election since 2004. This is a very Republican conservative state.
Right.
For Roy Moore to lose this, it's going to have to take a real sort of change in mindset among Republicans who turn out tomorrow, and a real, I think, boost in Democratic turnout.
Just remember this, the Republican primary that Roy Moore won, 13% turnout. Very, very low.
13%?
So we don't know what the statewide verdict is on Roy Moore. We just don't know.
Yeah, and this is a race that I'm sure has ignited a lot of people because it's become a national debate. All eyes are on Alabama and whether or not this is a referendum on the president.
Well, you mentioned that, and that actually some people think might work in Roy Moore's favor because a lot of people who are supporting Roy Moore don't like what the national mindset is about Alabama and about this race. And in fact, Roy Moore, even before the allegations, has been running against national Republicans, running against Mitch McConnell.
Anti-establishment, pro-Trump.
So that may play into this as well.
Yeah, really great point. Okay, I could talk about this because this is a really interesting. We talk about,
how much time
but
do
we
you
want to
have?
talk about something else.
Yes.
We want to talk about this fabulous podcast, The Takeout,
That's right.
featuring yours truly's. So, listen, Major, you start this podcast by saying, "quote Welcome to the very best part of my broadcast week."
My broadcast week, exactly right.
Why is this the best part of your broadcast week? You have a fabulous week, and this is the best part?
I have a fabulous week, I have a fabulous job, but this is the first thing I've ever created myself.
Ever?
Ever. In professionally.
What were you doing in arts and crafts in elementary school? Not creating anything?
Nothing memorable. Nothing memorable.
And tell me of your creation. What part of you is in this creation?
So the mindset for Steve and I, because I went to Steve and said I need help, is to have a place where we run the ideological gamut. So much of programming in the world is relentlessly right-wing or relentlessly left-wing.
Yeah.
We go back and forth. We'll snap your neck on the takeout. So one week we'll have Rick Perry, the energy secretary, very conservative former governor of Texas. The next week we had Joseph Kennedy III, the latest representative of the longest running progressive Democratic dynasty in America. Okay, that's week after, right next to each other. So you go back and forth on our show.
Yeah.
And we go back and forth. The other thing that we created is a space where we have a conversation, not an interrogation. We all know in television there's a false compression. We interview someone for 20 minutes, 9 seconds shows up on air. I got really tired of that. And I wanted a space where everything I asked and answered, everyone could hear.
Right.
Well, and we decided, too, when we were planning this with our producer, Arden Fari, when we were coming up with the idea, let's not do this in the studio. Let's take it out of the studio. So we decided, as we were eating Chinese food, to do it at a restaurant.
Where most people have the most interesting conversations? Over a meal.
Totally, yeah.
Right, and it definitely, loosens up is the wrong word, but it definitely puts, the guest in a different frame of mind. And the conversations, I think, have been much more candid than you would ever get by putting them in front of a camera normally or on a set like this.
Right.
And so we've found that the restaurant part of this has been a real asset to the conversation.
It's a fourth character. I'm character 1, he's character 2, our guest is character 3, and then the restaurant is character 4.
The guest is character 1.
No. I'm character 1. Don't ever forget that.
And I'm just smiling and nodding, like, what did you just say? Okay.
I open the show, I close the show, it says that.
All right, no one's arguing with you.
But the restaurant is the fourth character.
Yeah.
And I grew up listening to a lot of radio as a kid, listening to Bob and Ray and Loman and Barkley and these people who did bits on the radio.
You're dating yourself.
I know, very much so. But those bits are theater of the mind. There's something you hear and you imagine what you're hearing. Well, the restaurant has a little teeny bit of that. And we wanted to give people that feel, and now they can see it on CBSN, and we were right. Not only is this a podcast and a CBSN show, we have 7 radio stations around the country who now take the show, and we're going to have many more in the future.
Very cool.
Who build their time in their local markets around this show.
And this show is incredibly popular. I mean, not just here. You're getting requests for like stickers and mugs and sort of paraphernalia. Do you have paraphernalia?
So we don't have stickers.
So
Maybe I should put in a request right now before you run out. It is the holiday season.
You have metrics like how many people download the podcast, how many people watching on CBSN.
Right.
But we also started to give away swag, which is literally a sticker.
Signed by me.
Signed by Major.
That's cool.
Just to see what kind of audience participation we
Right.
could get. And we've gotten almost 400 sticker requests, and we asked people not to just email us and say we want a sticker. They actually have to physically send us a self-addressed stamped envelope.
That's the only way you get it.
To get this sticker. And that's a
That's
lot
good.
of work
Right.
for
You
people.
send us an
People don't do that
email,
anymore.
we won't respond.
So, right.
Facebook, Twitter, we have sort of
400 is pretty good.
set aside the entire social media mechanism to have this conversation,
So
to ask people to get out of their comfort zone and send us 2 stamps. A stamp for their letter and a stamp for the letter we send the sticker back.
Stamps are going
we've
out,
sent
too.
stickers, by the way, to every state,
All
to the
50
District of
states.
Columbia, and to 11 countries not named the United States.
That's right.
We have people all over the world listening.
Exactly.
That's amazing. We did talk about the restaurant being the fourth character.
fourth character.
What's the best thing you've eaten?
Chicken Milanese at Riss.
La-di-da.
That was very, very good.
What's the worst thing to eat and talk with?
Nothing. As anyone who watches the show on CBSN knows,
The worst thing is listening to him.
I just devour the food mid-sentence. Last week's episode with Corey Lewandowski and Dave Bossie on their new book, Let Trump Be Trump. I come in from one of the breaks, and you can hear that I'm talking
Chomping
and
away?
chewing my breakfast. And that is probably annoying to many of our listeners
No
and
shame.
most of our
No shame.
viewers, but it's what you get when you eat and have a podcast.
Steve, the best thing you've eaten?
Best thing I've eaten. I mean, we've done 8 or 9 episodes at Meiwa Restaurant, which is the Chinese restaurant,
The
right near
ancestral home of the
CBS.
Takeout podcast.
So there are 2 things that I just love there. I get even when I'm not doing the takeout, which is the steamed chicken and asparagus, but also their Mongolian beef is just for some reason to die for.
Real
So-
sucker for Mongolian
You guys are
beef.
making me
Yeah.
hungry.
Yeah.
I want neither of you to show up unless next time you bring one of these stickers. Do I have to actually mail you a letter? Am I going to have to do that?
I have some in my bag out here.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Always love it when you guys come by. Steve
Thank you.
Chaggaris and Major Garrett. Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, you can download new episodes of The Takeout every Friday, wherever you are, you can get our podcast. It's also available in select markets on CBS News Radio, and you can watch The Takeout right here on CBSN. Catch it Friday and Saturday nights at 9 Eastern and Pacific.